I've always loved sharing meaningful conversations with my friends and family, just anything pertaining spirituality and metaphysics, but I've always felt that it would be more resonant and be more valuable to share with a wider audience like you guys. The further along I went down my own personal journey, and as I aligned more so with my true essence and my true passion, so I could share topics that I just enjoy talking about with anybody and everybody on a regular basis, really. And what makes it so important to me is I feel as if I provide more value to a community. I feel as though my passion just for the creative space in general really diminished, just because I felt like the more that I created, the more unfulfilling it all started to feel. Just being contractually obligated to post on multiple platforms, trying to pursue like traditional art, abstract art, still trying to do YouTube full time and live my life outside of the internet. It just became like a lot to juggle at once. And so somewhere along the way, it became more about revenue and engagement rather than creativity and flow and fun. And I really went through deep introspection for the vast majority of last year, mentally but more so spiritually. And it really felt like an uphill battle of trying to figure out how to discern how to navigate in this creative space in a more balanced approach. How can I both expand myself but still have my content reachable and resonant to a wide audience without it feeling so much like work and burdening? Have it feel more fun and liberating the way that it's supposed to be. And so this really sets us up for today's topic on just personal changes and shifts that I've made within myself that have actually helped change me. So if you think about it, has there ever been a time where you desired something and almost instantaneously you have negative thoughts that come to the surface on the when, the how, and the why you can't have something pertaining to that, and it kind of keeps you in separation from it? I ask that because this is something that I've been able to become aware of just from practicing self-awareness and just observing my own thought. And so through this, I've allowed myself to simply create the space to just let go of certain beliefs that just don't serve what I'm trying to foster for myself. Sometimes it's not always easy because we subconsciously can become comfortable with the stories we tell ourselves because it's what we're most familiar with. So for me, I want to use my personal experiences not only to validate what I'm trying to share with y'all, but maybe to validate someone else who is on the same path but just isn't quite there yet, which is okay. I've always loved hearing other people's philosophical takes, anything spirituality, esoterica, metaphysics, all of that, anything just pertaining to life outside surface level. And for the longest, I romanticized the idea of creating content like this, but kind of getting in my own way in fear of being misunderstood or feeling like my voice wasn't loud enough to be heard or fully resonant with a wider audience. In honesty, this is something that has hindered me in the past and just other areas of my life, simply being just quiet and introverted and reserved growing up, both in school and at home. So this is actually a core wound that I faced fairly recently with friends, but particularly family members, referencing back to specific events in my childhood that kind of framed certain thought patterns that I carried. And I didn't really get the full scope of this realization until I just started questioning certain thoughts of like why I think this way, or where did that belief come from? Why do I still feel that way? What is the core root of this issue? And essentially doing shadow work, dancing with my own shadow for like nearly a year, it was very painful, but I know in the long run, it was really beneficial for what I want to materialize for myself. And so in most cases, the story we tell ourselves kind of stems from behavioral patterns or some sort of event that happened in our childhood, like a childhood wound. And so as you practice self-awareness, you become the observer of these thoughts. And just for me personally, it just became really easy to discern what beliefs really aren't mine. So for more painful wounds, this can actually cause you to relive certain wounds on a psychological or emotional scale. And your body can experience several highs and lows, but the further along down your journey, you're able to release that and sort of like pivot your attention to what you're trying to create yourself and just watch it unfold and manifest for you. So what I was trying to manifest for myself was becoming comfortable, being uncomfortable, sharing my vulnerabilities with the wider audience. And so very early in my journey, I grasped all of this, but still wonder why I lacked the motivation or the drive. So this is why meditative practices such as breathwork, yoga, any sort of practice that helps you come back to the present is so heavily talked about, because you're able to ground yourself, quiet your mind, get in touch with yourself beyond your thoughts, and transcend beyond your mind. And so as you practice this, you're able to close the gap. And for some, it takes longer than others, but there's really no timestamp for any of this. But over time, you're able to close the gap and become closer to what it is you're trying to create for yourself. As this gap of separation closes, sometimes that first inkling of your desire showing up for you may show up to you as like an impulse or an urge to go do something. Then you rendezvous with a stranger and y'all happen to have a conversation that's in alignment with your desire, or a friend reaches out to you and happens to talk about the very same thing that's been very dominant in your headspace. And so it's like little by little you're being breadcrumbed down this journey of where it is you're trying to get to. And so this is what we call the Bridge of Incidents by Neville Goddard. And so the beauty of this is everyone's journey, everyone's path is different, but very often the practices and the methods, they're almost always the same. It just looks a little bit different for each individual. So I really wanted to just sit down, reconnect with you guys, and discuss the changes that I've made for myself that have just really helped me up to this point. So for starters, this first one is intentionally bringing my awareness to thoughts that feel closer in alignment to what it is I'm trying to manifest versus the doubts that kind of keep me in separation from it. This is the biggest key. It's so simple, yet it's so difficult to execute without consistency and pure intent, right? So what made this so difficult for me is having all the tools and the knowledge that I did, doing the work, and then looking outward for validation just to see if there was any change or to see if I was making any progress. So I've learned to acknowledge that me kind of checking to see if I'm doing things right was essentially like my mind or the ego kind of interjecting back into the mix. And I want to reiterate something that I feel like we should all be aware of by now, but if not, then it's okay. We are a multi-dimensional being with a body, mind, and soul. And so often I catch myself questioning the process and then getting attached to the thoughts that were questioning my actions or how my body felt during this process. Just becoming very attached to my body and my thoughts. And also, rather than listening to my body and using my feelings sort of as like a compass. Your emotions are like your biggest indicator of where you are right now energetically, because emotions is literally energy in motion. And so I've really practiced not really being so attached to that and kind of overseeing whatever emotion I'm feeling, whatever sort of thought pattern I'm stuck in, and just getting back to my true essence and staying aligned with myself beyond my mind. I guess a more explicit example of this would be like not really forming any judgment of whatever feeling and thought that I may have at that moment. There are days, trust me, where I can still have a lot of heavy, lingering, negative emotions going on. And even though I do pivot my attention to something completely different, there's still that lingering energy there. And so what has really helped me is just being aware of that and not trying to fight it, but to just kind of like lean into it, accept it, not really dwell in it, but just acknowledge the fact that, okay, this is where I am right now, and sort of pivot. So for me, it may be different for each individual, but for me, it was finding something completely separate than what's going on up here or emotionally, like playing the piano or finding a book to read or playing chess, which is probably my favorite of the three. Anything to not necessarily distract myself or run away from how I'm feeling, but to stimulate myself in a way that I can kind of veer towards these very heavy negative emotions towards something much lighter. And so it's like the more that I practice this, the less frequent I started experiencing these same negative thought patterns and negative emotions. Then over time, it's like they're not even there anymore. It's like by law, it's like it has to fall off, you know? This is also called emotional alchemy, which is basically transmuting your own energy into political action, which has helped me so much, particularly when I'm feeling like really directionless and not as aware of what exactly is taking place in my body. Trusting in the process. So like I previously mentioned, something that really tripped me up, especially at the beginning of all this when everything was still so fresh and new and raw, is me kind of looking outside of myself to see if I'm doing it right. And I learned that 9 times out of 10 when I'm doing that and I'm looking outside of myself, I'm looking for a sign, I'm trying to make sure I'm doing it right, 9 times out of 10 I'm not doing it right. And it's like over time I just let go and trust and strengthen my connection to myself and develop this inner knowing through my own tuition that kind of really never leaves you. Like a gut feeling or like that whisper among the storm Or like that one quiet kid in the classroom that really talks, but when he does speak up, he be spitting facts, or he always has the right answer. Like that's basically what your intuition is. That's that inner knowing that we all have. There's a quote that goes, faith is like Wi-Fi. It's invisible, but it has the power to connect you to whatever you need. And so, in short, that's essentially all that this is. There's so much movement and progress that we make as individuals, even though we can't tangibly see it. So lastly, being receptive to all things around you. It's universal law and understanding that we are connected to everything and everyone around us. We are a fragment of a greater source. Some people call this God, some people call this the universe. Omnipresence, oneness, regardless, it's universal, it's everywhere. And so for me, it's like as I came more in alignment with myself, it became more natural to just be more receptive to everything and just all the energies around me. I am a firm believer that everything and everyone around you is merely a reflection of your inner world. So look around and ask yourself, what is your surrounding telling you? The people in your life, the life you live, your priorities and values. All this is reflected back to you in the outer world, but your answers and your solutions are always found within. So as I really learned and accepted that, I really became less triggered by just the people around me. Joseph Murphy states that our subconscious mind, the people around us, always reflect our subconscious beliefs and the inner conversations, the inner dialogue that we have with ourselves. I was on the phone with a friend a couple of days ago, and I was talking about a friend that I grew up with in middle school and how we're still like really close to this day and how much I love her and I cherish her and I value her. And actually this morning she texted me, I'm gonna leave a screenshot up here, she texted me like the very same thing that I had already felt about her. So this is just a prime example of how your own inner conversations, even if it's something whispered in silence, other people will echo it. This scientifically is called telepathy. It's not some phenomenon that you see in Marvel movies. It is real, and it's something that we can truly hone in on as we divert our attention to what it is we're trying to create in our outer world. Another brief example is people will very often point out how confident I am or how much confidence I exude. And this honestly always starts with how I feel about myself. Like everyone else, I do have my own insecurities, but very seldom do I highlight those insecurities or ponder too much on them. I'm very confident in myself, I'm very secure in myself, and so this is reflected out in my outer world, and then people, that's one of the traits that people love about me, because it's something that I love about myself. But that's basically it. I'm gonna close this video before I start rambling. I really wanted to create this video for anyone who may need it. I'm confident that it has helped at least one person. And my goal really for my channel moving forward is to create a safe space for people to not only feel safe being vulnerable, but to know that they are heard and that they are seen and that they are valued. So yeah, that's about it. I really want to know in the comments. Let me know, what challenges are you facing right now and how are you dealing with it? For a while, I was kind of like in my own way until I just learned how to forgive myself. But I think that does come with patience and time. And of course, just reaching another level of self-understanding. So I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. Do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you are new. And I will see you guys in my next video.